What's going on, guys? We're back with another NFL Nitro video, back with our Week 18 review, plus the NFL playoffs predictions. I'm excited for the playoffs. What about you, Jam?
Can't wait to get into it. Special time of the year, for sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, shout out to Daniel, our first ever real subscriber that isn't one of us. We rock with you. Thanks for the support. That's the most support we've ever gotten on the channel. So,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you're watching this, but thank you. Also, if you'd like to skip to the important part of the video, the playoff predictions, it's on screen. But I'm ready to go if you are. Get into the video.
I am too. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Yes, sir. Alright, starting the first prediction, the first game of the week, first review I should say, was the Baltimore Ravens destroying my team. A game that I'm pretty happy with, to be honest. We have the number 2 pick now, but the win secured the Ravens the first seed in the AFC North. It was 35-10. The Ravens started kind of slow. We were saying in it, I was kind of nervous because they weren't pulling away, but they really heated up in the second half. Lamar finished with 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, also had over 60 rushing yards, had a great game. Derrick Henry was killing us in the second half. He had 130 of his 138 yards in the second half. Crazy. For the Ravens, the receiving game, Rashad Bateman had a very solid game, put up 76 yards and a touchdown. Mark Andrews also had a touchdown, 50 yards. But it was really just a balanced attack by the Ravens, and they just destroyed us in pretty much every facet. I'll brush over the Browns. Last game of the season for us, so Bailey Zappi was starting. Wasn't very good. He threw a pick 6 on the second drive of the game. Threw 170 yards, 1 touchdown, but 2 interceptions. Just wasn't good. Rushing wise, we had Jacob Kabodi. Never heard of him before the game. Didn't know he was on the team. But he was our best running back with 24 rushing yards. Couldn't do much though. We were playing from behind, so Jerry Jeudy had a much better game this week. 6 catches for 63 yards. Better way to end the season. And Jordan Akins had a very solid game too, filling in for Njoku, 60 yards and a touchdown. Overall though, just the Ravens got it done. Browns did what they had to get the pick as well. Not much to talk about with this game.
Well, if you're ready to move on, I am too.
Yep.
So just like that, I guess, because, we're going into the playoffs, you had to put us in comp. Is any correlation there?
Frick.
But the next game was one of the more competitive games, for sure, in the week. And to be fair, what was a much more competitive week than I think what we were both expecting, for sure. If you saw last video, shout out to Daniel. But it was the Cincinnati Bengals getting the job done over the Pittsburgh Steelers, 19 points to 17. In what was, not the best offensive showing from the Bengals, but managing to get it done, obviously. Starting with the Bengals, who did win. Joe Burrow had a pretty solid game. He threw for 277 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That Pittsburgh defense obviously is pretty tough. And overall, he was having a pretty rough time out there. He had a fumble as well, I believe. He got sacked a few times. He was not having fun out there, but as this Cincinnati offense has been cooking, it did manage to, end up cooking in this game. But their leading rusher was Khalil Herbert, as their starting running back Chase Brown was injured last week against the Broncos. He had 20 carries for 69 yards, and that was, that's pretty solid especially for a backup running back. Ja'Marr Chase continues his dominant performance, or his dominant season, I should say. His triple crown season. One of the only receivers to do that since 2000. Only one of 2. Which is kind of crazy. I don't know what it is actually, but Ja'Marr Chase had 10 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. A really nice game from him for sure. He just, he's such a dominant. He's just a beast. He might be the best receiver in the game, and I don't think anyone can argue with that for sure. But their next receiver or next receiving threat was Mike Kazicki with 68 yards. T. Higgins also got in there with 53. But overall, the Bengals, they played pretty solid. Not their best, but not their worst. But unfortunately, because of my Denver Broncos, they were eliminated from the playoffs. But yeah, overall, a pretty great end to the season. For the Steelers, Russell Wilson threw for 148 yards and a touchdown. Wasn't very good though, to be honest. Najee Harris had 36 yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver was Pat Frymuth with 85 yards and a touchdown. Overall, just wasn't the best game. Russ did not start the game very well, even though his stats looked pretty solid. He just wasn't very good, and I don't know how they're going to go in this playoffs. It'll be interesting to see for sure. But overall, good win for the Bengals. They tried their best this season. Unfortunately, it didn't matter.
Next up is the Carolina Panthers, putting up 44 points on the Falcons' heads and beating them 44-38 in overtime. Granted, by the time overtime was commencing, the Falcons already knew that they were eliminated from playoff contention. Overall, it was an amazing game though. Bryce Young continues his incredible form with his by far best game of the season. Put up 250 yards in the air, 3 touchdowns, and then added 2 touchdowns on the ground. Just a massive bounce back year for the sophomore. Miles Sanders had a good game too. Put up 66 yards, had the game-winning touchdown in overtime, and also had 50 yards receiving and another receiving touchdown. So, very good game. Raheem Blackshear also put up 47 rushing yards. And onto the receivers, Adam Thielen had a solid game. He's been playing well, obviously. He put up 44 yards. Jalen Coker put up 62 yards. And also had a completion for 19 yards on a trick play. And honestly, Jalen Coker has been having a very underrated season, He was on UDFA, and he's almost got 500 yards on his season, so very solid year for him. For the Falcons though, Michael Penix looks really good still. Has another solid game, 312 yards. Had 3 total touchdowns, one of them being on the ground. Did have an interception, but when they put up 38 points, the loss isn't on the offense. Bijan also was dominant, had one of his best games of the season, 170 yards and 2 touchdowns on 28 carries. But Tyler Algier had a solid game, put up 52 yards on only 9 carries. One of the best running back duos in the league, obviously. But now getting to Drake Young, a career high in yardage. He had 10 catches, 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dominant performance. Ray McLeod also had a good game. Obviously, it wasn't enough for the Falcons. And overall, this season's been, I'm sure, very demoralizing. But in the end, you have to be excited still by the future because, man, Michael Penix looks like a stud. And then the same can be said for the Panthers and Bryce Young and how he's turned the season around. But that's all I have for that game. It was a very entertaining game.
Fair. The next game was honestly another surprisingly entertaining game. It was the Washington Commanders backups getting the job done over the Dallas Cowboys backups, 23 points to 19, in what came down to a last-second touchdown to win the game for the Commanders. But starting with the Cowboys, Trey Lance got the start. He had 244 yards, not a terrible game from him. I don't know, maybe there's something there for sure. Rico Dowdle had 72 and a touchdown, and he's had a pretty underrated season. Whether he'll be the back for them in 2025, who knows. Jalen Tolbert was their leading receiver with 98 yards. Kevontae Turpin had 53 yards. And yeah, they were pretty solid all around the Cowboys offense. there's not really too much, to say about that. What just happened?
I don't know.
But for the Washington Commanders, it was Marcus Mariota who came in for Jaden Daniels. Marcus Mariota throwing for 161 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Jaden Daniels was playing, he was 6 for 12 for 38 yards, so not his best game, but they ended up pulling him so that his stats weren't ruined, obviously. Bonix, offensive rookie of the year. But the leading rusher ended up being Marcus Mariota with 56 yards and a touchdown, and the second leading rusher was Jaden Daniels. So
Yeah.
they basically had no running back play at all. Terry McLaurin had a really solid game with 8 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown. Olamide Zacchaeus had 2 receptions for 51 yards, and Zach Ertz capped off his really solid season with 44 yards and a touchdown. But overall, as I mentioned, it was a late touchdown at the end of the game, which won the Commanders the game. And overall, they should be extremely happy with their season. They've absolutely cooked. And yeah, I mean, it was a good win for them for sure. Now they get to play the Bucks in the playoffs.
Next game, I know we've been talking about like upping the tempo, but we might need to slow it down for a game because it was the Chicago Bears beating the Packers 24-22.
Oh no.
I don't mean to say I told you so, but I told you so. Roll the clip. I'm gonna take the Bears just because why not? It's tough to predict week 18 games, but bit of a guess, maybe Caleb Williams will play well. Why not? Give me the Bears.
Packers. Anyways, the next game is the Colts taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, I was blind to that.
Last time the Bears were right there against the Packers.
Congrats, it's week 18. Why would the Bears want to play
But
for a win?
You think
So
the
stupid.
Packers backups are gonna win, buddy?
Hey,
You acted like week 18 hasn't
Who
been just
says that
pure
the-
chaos every
who
week,
says
every
the-
season. There's no way you don't think the Bears have a chance, though.
I don't
Caleb
care,
Williams-
they just suck. Did you... Hey, get this.
Bro,
Who scored 3 points last week?
last time they played,
scored
it was
3
a
points last week?
2-point game, buddy. I'm not talking about last
Who
week.
scored
I'm
3
talking
points
about
last week?
week 18.
You were talking... No, you're talking about week like 11.
Why do you love the
That was
Packers so
ages
much?
ago.
It's not that crazy that the Bears could beat them. But yeah, it was the Bears' first win versus the Packers since 2018. Big time. They broke out an 11-game losing streak against the Packers off of a Carlos
Congrats.
Santos 51-game winner, 51-yard game winner. I'm so hyped because this should have happened in week 11, but they blocked the kick. Overall though, the game didn't actually matter too much for the standings. The Packers did play the starters and they got hurt, but we'll talk about them later. Caleb Williams had a very solid game, 150 yards, a touchdown. Not gonna blow you away with those stats, but it was solid. DeAndre Swift has an up and down season. Didn't have the best yards per carry, but did get 65 total yards and a touchdown on 20 carries. DJ Moore for them had 9 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown, but no one else ended up over 25 yards for the Bears. It was really just a DJ Moore show. For the Packers though, Jordan Love started, he ended up getting hurt, unfortunately. Malik Willis, played his first loss of the season. Jordan Love had 69 yards, 7 for 12 before going out, and then Malik Willis comes in 10 for 13, 136, but couldn't get it done. The news is though that Jordan Love should be fine for the playoffs, which is big for them. I mean, Malik Willis is a good backup to be fair. But, Christian Watson also got hurt. He got carted off, so hopefully he's alright. And
No, he's out for the season.
he's not alright.
He had an ACL tear.
Damn, I saw him get carted off.
That's what they
The
get.
good thing with the Packers is they do have a lot of receiver depth. You know, Dontavion Wicks is a stud, so he might have a big game.
True.
Overall, though, a good win for the Bears, I guess. The season's over. But it felt like, you know, I'm sure it felt good for the Bears fans to get one over the Packers after all these years. I'm so happy.
Congrats.
That's my Super Bowl. And I'm not even a Bears fan.
Congrats, you got a week 18.
Hey, you were, bro, I was
A
cooking this.
week 18.
You were acting like I was crazy. I'm just saying, you tried to skip over it.
I did because I didn't want to fight. You know, I wanted to be
I wanted-
civilized and
I knew what
move
was gonna
on.
happen. I stood on my point, and here we are.
Congrats, you won a week 18
I almost
meaningless
won
game.
both of the matchups.
Yeah, and it was a meaningless game.
The other one
Congrats.
should have been a Bears win as well.
Congrats.
You just don't know
Should
ball.
have. I don't know ball. Hey,
Thank you
listen,
for
I
admitting.
predicted. Thank you for admitting it. Okay, buddy.
What do you prove?
I predicted that the Packers would make the playoffs. And
Predicted
you
that the
probably
Jets would
predicted
win the
that
AFC.
But the next game was the Indianapolis Colts getting the job done over the Jacksonville Jaguars. 26 points to 23 in a game that went into OT. Man, what a game. Starting with the Jags, Mac Jones had a solid game with 225 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's a decent day. Tank Bigsby was their leading rusher with 39 yards and a touchdown. Brian Thomas capped off his amazing rookie season with 7 catches for 103 yards. He's been such a solid rookie, man. There's some really good ones in this draft for sure. Brenton Strange was their second leading receiver with 60 yards. But that's it for their offense. They didn't really do all that much, to be honest. I mean, yeah, there's not really too much to say. They suck. They've got a top pick in the draft. Good on them. But moving on to the Colts, with Joe Flacco, as AR was still out with that terrible injury that he seemed the back spasms. Joe Flacco threw for 264 yards and 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. I don't think we've seen a Colts game this year where the quarterback hasn't thrown an interception. That actually might not even be like a joke or an exaggeration. I think every game, whoever they've had a QB, that actually might be a thing. Like, it's kind of crazy. Jonathan Taylor continued his Linsanity run after ending their playoff chances against the Broncos. He had 177 yards and a touchdown on 34 carries. He had a great game for sure, and he's one of the more underrated backs in the league. Josh Downs was their leading receiver with 94 yards on 10 catches. Barker Pittman was nice with 72. And Alec Pierce was their lone touchdown getter, receiving wise at least, and he also added with 57. Overall, it was a solid game from both teams. I think the Jags will be pretty happy as they ain't got they get a good pick. They ain't got no fight, but the Colts, I guess they get a cool morale boost. Overall, solid game from both teams.
Next up was a big game. If we're talking about the draft pick, the draft, might be a bit early to talk about the draft, to be fair, but the Patriots beat the Bills 23-16 in a game that cost them dearly. Their number 1 overall pick falls to 4 after the win. And after the game, their coach Jared Mayo also got fired. Maybe no. But in this game, it was Joe Milton starting, and he might be a stud. I wouldn't mind to see him start somewhere next season because he was cooking in his debut. He had 241 yards, put up a passing touchdown, also had a rushing touchdown. Was making some really explosive plays too. He's a lot of fun to watch, like. Antonio Gibson didn't have a great game, 12 for 41. And then receiving wise, Kayshon Boutte was the guy who got it done for the Patriots. He had 7 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. Had a great game. He's had some solid games this season, but this is for sure the best. For the Bills, obviously, the starters were not playing. Well, most of them. James Cook was, but Mitch Trubisky was the starting QB. Or it might have been Mike White, but Trubisky and White both got in. No, it was Trubisky. Actually, I remember. And then White came in. But Trubisky was having a solid game. Had 101 yards and a touchdown. Mike White, on the other hand, 3 for 11, 28 yards. But we will shout out James Cook.
James Cook enthusiast.
Gotta give him his props because he's scored a touchdown, which gives him 16 on the season, tying O.J. Simpson for the franchise record. Ray Davis had a good game, put up 64 yards on 15 carries, nothing crazy. The leading receiver was Curtis Samuel, putting up 52 yards on 7 catches. Overall, though, not much to note about this game for the Bills. They weren't playing for anything. But honestly, the Bills fans are probably happy with this result because it screws the Patriots over. That's all I really got. Shout out Joe Milton. Richard Brown, maybe.
For sure. I mean, to be fair, I'm not trying to diss the performance, but it was against backups, you gotta remember.
Yeah.
It's not like he was playing the full-on Bills defense like, a certain Bo Nix is gonna have to do next week. But, also, I don't know ball apparently. I thought that, what's his name, Curtis Samuel was still on Washington. I don't know ball, I guess. But the next game, if you were talking about draft implications, well, the Giants get the clutch L to give themselves a top 3 pick. Huge. Maybe Drew Lock's career isn't over in New York. Starting with Drew Lock, he had an okay game. He threw for 138 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Overall, a decently solid game to cap off. But their leading rusher was Tyrone Tracy with 14 carries for 59 yards. Overall, he's been pretty solid. It'll be pretty interesting to see if they obviously stick with him next year. Their leading receiver was their outstanding rookie Malik Neighbors with 5 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown, capping off his insane rookie year. Just an amazing player. As I said with Brian Thomas, there's just so many good rookies, especially receivers. And, all I'm going to say is I think that LSU receivers are low-key definitely better than Ohio State.
There's not really an argument anymore. You gotta wait
It's
till
not an
Greenhouse.
argument.
They
Exactly.
they already had 2 elite receivers, they just got 2 more. So it's over.
It is kind of crazy, for sure. But Wan'Dale Robinson was really the only other notable receiver with 43 yards on 10 receptions. So overall, an okay performance from them. They were definitely trying to lose this game though, against the Philadelphia backups. And I mean, yeah, they get a top 3 draft pick. I guess after the win that they had against the Colts, that's really all you'd ask for. But for the Eagles, as I mentioned, it was their backups. Tanner McKee, the rookie, I believe. No, he's a 2nd-year player. That's my fault, guys. Tanner McKee, the 2nd-year player. I don't know ball. I just remember drafting him in Madden once. But he had 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. Overall, a pretty solid game for the first starter. His first game starting. He had a pretty solid game. Will Shepley was their leading running back with 32 yards. Jahan Dotson, maybe he's redeeming himself. He had 94 yards on 7 receptions. So overall, maybe there's something there with him. They obviously traded for him earlier in the season and he has not looked good. Dallas Goedert was decent with 55 yards as well. Overall though, it was just kind of a nothing game. Really all that there was to it was that New York got a top 3 pick. That's really it. So overall, good job New York, and good luck Philadelphia in the playoffs.
Next up, we have a fun one, and one of the most important games of the week. Didn't end up actually mattering to the Falcons, but at the time it did. It was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pulling out a one possession win over the Saints, in which they trailed at halftime. We're going to start with the Hall of Fame receiver, Mike Evans, because at the end of the game, the Buccaneers had it wrapped up. They could have taken a knee. They threw the out route though to Mike Evans, got him to 1,000 yards in the season, which is his 11th straight season with 1,000 yards. Crazy. Ties Jerry Rice for the longest streak of 1,000-yard seasons. Shout out to him. I was really happy that he got it because after the missed games earlier in the season, it wasn't looking good. And the Buccaneers are now gonna host the Commanders. Tough game, but you know the Buccaneers are kind of lightning in a bottle with Baker Mayfield. But as I said, they were down 16-6 at halftime. Turned it on. Baker Mayfield had a good game. Put up 221 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have a pick, but threw in almost 70 yards on the ground. Bucky Irving had another good game, 89 yards and a touchdown. Evans ended up with 89 yards receiving. Obviously got him to the thousands, just barely. Bailey McMillan, he's had a couple solid games in a row. Put up another one with 74 yards and a touchdown. Overall, it was just a nice, well-rounded game for the Buccaneers offense. For the Saints, it was Spencer Rattler starting, and he was solid, honestly. Put up 240 yards, a touchdown. There's been ups and downs in his short career so far, but calculating stuff. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the new Saint, had a bad game, 8 carries for 26 yards, but he was a leading rusher for the Saints. It was not very good on that regard, but Juwan Johnson continues his great stretch for 80 yards and 6 catches. He's looking like maybe a top 10 tight end in the league, like either way he's playing. Him and Johnny Smith have had really good seasons. That's what I'm trying to say. That's it for the Saints, so a rough season for them. Good win for the Bucks, so I'm excited to see them in the playoffs, honestly. Obviously last season they upsetted the Eagles.
Sure.
I think they could honestly potentially upset Washington as well, young Washington.
Yeah, I
We'll
mean,
get to that
there's some tough games in here for some teams for sure.
Yeah.
But this is going to be an interesting one, I think. But obviously,
That-
as you mentioned, we'll get into it.
And Green Bay
Sure.
and Eagles. Those are
Shh.
my favorites.
Shh. But the next game was another meaningless game. It was the Houston Texans getting the job done over the Tennessee Titans, 23 points to 14. You know, as you mentioned a couple games earlier, the New England Patriots had the first pick in the draft, but blew it. And guess who gets it? It is the Tennessee Titans. They officially are on the clock with the first pick. It'll be interesting to see where they go. I'm excited to see what they do, who they go with. But for the Titans, Will Levis had a pretty solid game overall. He threw for 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Obviously, with that number 1 overall pick, I expect them to probably go quarterback. You never know, but Will Levis has had a pretty sour year. It's just not been it for him. It's not like he's had too much help, but yeah, I mean, it's just not been great. But overall, he caps off with a decent performance. Mason Rudolph also came in and threw for 70 yards. Their leading rusher was Tony Pollard with 62 on the ground. Their leading receivers were Calvin Ridley with 76 yards, and well, Nick Westbrook. He's had overall a pretty underrated year. He had 50 yards on receiving, and their one touchdown catcher receiving wise was Tay Martin. I've never actually heard of him, but I assume he's a young guy. Overall, yeah, it's just not been the best year for them. They're probably pretty happy with they'd be extremely happy with the number 1 pick, and they're extremely happy that the season is finally over. But for the Texans, CJ Stroud did play. He did start. He threw 6 for 6, 50 yards and a touchdown, then got pulled from the game, which is fair enough. Obviously, they don't want to risk him getting injured. Davis Mills came in though, and he threw for 128 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Damian Pierce had a big game with 176 yards and 1 touchdown. I believe he had was it a 95-yard touchdown run? I think it was.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or it was 98 yards actually. I think it was a 98-yard touchdown run. So he was pretty dominant overall, trying to win back that RB1 spot. And obviously helped them massively to the win. Robert Woods was their leading receiver with 39 yards. Nico Collins wasn't far behind with 38 yards and a touchdown. I mean, overall, yeah, there just wasn't too much to this game. It was probably one of the more lackluster games of the week. Overall, great result for the Titans with their number 1 pick, and good result for the Texans as they obviously have they are the 4th seed in the playoffs and are now going to host Pittsburgh.
This next game, I'm probably going to keep pretty short because it just didn't really matter for either team. It was a battle of pride between the Cardinals and the 49ers. And Arizona, when it doesn't matter anymore, they have one of the best games they've had all season. Kyler Murray put up 4 touchdowns on 242 passing yards, leading the Cardinals to a 47-24 win. Tony Jones had a solid game, 55 yards. He had a 46-yard run in there. Only had 4 attempts, but was solid. Michael Carter, not so good, but had a touchdown, 17 for 43. And Trey McBride continues his great season, 7 for 65 and a touchdown. They got Marvin Harrison Jr. a touchdown late in the game. He had 63 yards for 5 catches to end his rookie season, his good rookie season. Greg Dortch had 2 touchdowns as well receiving with 47 yards. But for the 49ers, it was Joshua Dobbs starting. He was not great. He was fine, I guess. In the game, it doesn't matter, as I said. He had 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, but did throw 2 picks. Did also add a rushing touchdown. For the 49ers, so it was, 3rd string running back Patrick Taylor. He had a great day. 17 attempts, 109 rushing yards. Ricky Purcell had a nice game as well, with a touchdown and 69 yards. Not going to get into the rest of the receivers, but Kyle Juszczyk had a touchdown receiving. Overall, though, this game, just didn't really matter. The Cardinals just got it done, though. I guess shout out Kyler Murray. You can end the season on a really nice game. Yeah, the Cardinals' offense looked a lot better than it has. So, could have used that all season, but now they want to be good. So.
That's respect to them, for real. No! The next game was my Denver Broncos managing to make the playoffs in a stellar 38-0 shutout over the Kansas City Chiefs backups. Overall, it was a really solid game from us. Obviously, it's their backups. I'm not going to be, too hyped, although I am pretty hyped. But, at the end of the day, it was our starters versus the backups. It was basically atomic bomb versus baby. That's what it was out there. I mean, for the Broncos, Bo Nix had one of his best games. He threw for 321 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. What was a really solid game for him. He also added with 47 on the ground and was our leading rusher. And ends the season with the 2nd most passing touchdowns by a rookie quarterback ever, which is just insane, and I'm so happy for him. He was definitely cooking. Jaleel McLaughlin was our next best running back. He had 39 yards. Audrey Stein also had 34 yards and a touchdown. Overall, a pretty solid performance on the ground. Colin Sutton reaching the 1,000-yard mark. Very happy for that man. He had 98 and a touchdown. A really solid game from him. Marvin Mims continues his insanity run. Hopefully he can take the form into the playoffs. He had 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. Overall, really nice day from him. Devon Vele had 50 yards on 4 receptions and also had a touchdown off of a couple bobbles. A very lucky touchdown for him. Javonte Williams had 50 yards receiving and 3 receptions. But yeah, overall really solid performance. And now I know it's gonna be weird, but I mean this in no disrespect to the Chiefs, but their stats were so mid and bad that there's nothing to even talk about. So we're just gonna move past them. Overall, I'm very happy with the game. And also, I just like to say how the Bengals fans have been talking about, you know, how the Chiefs were scared of them, as if, you know, the Chiefs shouldn't have rested their starters, which is stupid. They definitely should have. They made the right call, pulling all of their starters. And overall, we get a nice win. I'm pretty happy about it. On to Buffalo, is all I'm gonna say. And that's how I end it.
The next game was another battle of pride that I'm not going to spend too much time on, but it was the Seahawks giving it to the Rams 30-25 after the Rams secured the division win last week. Gino had a career high in touchdowns, had a great day, put up 230 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had a great day. Zach Charbonnet put up 59 rushing yards, and then also had a 32-yard reception that wasn't a catch, similar to Josh Allen if you remember early in the season. So he finished with 0 catches for 32 receiving yards. On the trick play, it was flipped back to him. Kenny McIntosh had a good day as well for 49 yards. That's really all for the Seahawks. I mean, Noah Fant had a solid day, put up a touchdown, 60 yards. DK Metcalf and AJ Barner had the other receiving touchdowns. Not much to note. Jimmy G was starting for the Rams. He had a solid day. I haven't seen him play in a while. What?
Just seeing you defense on defense.
Look, I jumped to
It's funny.
block it. Who did you? Yeah, grew up like 334 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have a pick. Solid. Ronnie Rivers was starting as well at running back for them. Put up 48 rushing yards. Jordan Whittington, they're just making players up at this point. He had 86 yards. DeMarcus Robinson had 72. There's someone real. And then Tyler Higbee had a touchdown at 46 for the Rams. Overall, not a crazy game. Shout out to Gino, I guess, but yeah, there's not much to say about this game. The season's over for the Seahawks. The Rams, who do they play? They play the 2 seed. Oh, they won their
That would
division.
be
So they play the 6 seed. Can't
the
remember.
Philadelphia
They have a
Eagles.
tough game. That's the Packers.
I don't know. I
There's
don't,
the-
I
there's-
don't care.
Packers, Commanders, what's the other wild card team?
Vikings.
Oh yes. Oh,
Yeah, they play
Vikings.
Vikings. That's tough.
I forgot about
Also, I'd just like to say, are you suggesting that the Rams are creating players like this is like 2K rosters when they
Yes.
just have
that. Yeah, auto-generated
randomly
players when you don't have enough players.
generated players?
You know,
I
they
see.
rested everyone, so.
I feel like I've heard of Jordan Whittington as well, which is a fun.
He's probably
which is
had
funny.
He probably had a game last season or something.
Maybe.
And then Ronnie Rivers, I
Um,
don't think I've ever had a Ronnie Rivers.
No,
Rivers
that
sounds
is
like a
that
Madden
is
player.
that is an auto-generated player. But moving on, it was the LA Chargers getting the job done over the Las Vegas Raiders. 34 points to 20. Starting with the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell was decent. He had 214 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was pretty solid overall. Their leading rusher was Alexander Madison with 20 yards. Receiving, Jacoby Myers had himself a day with 123 yards and a touchdown. One of the more underrated players in the league for sure. I actually hate playing him in Madden. Brock Bowers ends his extremely good rookie year with 50 yards and a touchdown. But except for that, there's not too much for the Raiders. They're probably pretty happy with the L after back-to-back terrible W's. Justin Herbert, he had a really good day, throwing for 346 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. A really solid day for him. J.K. Dobbins back for the Chargers, he had 63 on the ground. Justin Herbert followed with 42, and Hassan Haskins had their only rushing touchdown alongside with 33 rushing yards. Quinton Johnston, okay, I did not know he had such a good game. He said, F it, where was this on my fantasy team? I had him the whole time.
All your fantasy players are
start
good
him.
now, that's over.
I know. But he went off for 13 receptions for 186 yards. I'm pretty sure he had an insane one-handed catch as well, which is just crazy. He just decided, F it, I'm here. But Ladd McConkey finishes his really good rookie season. So a couple of great rookies in this game. But he had 95 yards on 5 receptions. Will Disley also had 42 and a touchdown. Overall, pretty solid game for both teams. Not too much to say, you know, as a lot of these games are gone. A good win for the Chargers and a good L for the Raiders.
Next up was a divisional matchup, the New York Jets giving it to the Dolphins 32-20 in a game where Aaron Rodgers put up history. Put up 274 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Those 4 touchdowns were a season high, and they also bring him to 500 career passing touchdowns. A historic mark. He's the 5th player to ever reach that, so shout out to him. I mean, there's questions about his retirement. You know, he's suggesting that he's complimenting it, or contemplating
Complimenting his own retirement. I don't know, he can compliment that, but you know.
He's definitely, you know, all the disappointment at the start of the year, for him, he's been playing really well recently. It makes it tough. You know, you want to think that he can come back and have a better season next year, but he is also 41. Brees Hall,
that is true,
put up 57 rushing yards and 12 carries. I can't talk. He also had a receiving touchdown and 15 receiving yards.
Never could.
Rookie Isaiah Davis put up 41 yards on 4 carries. Devontae Adams had 12 targets, only got 6 of them, but 6 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown. He's also turned it up late, so we know he's going to be back or playing next year. Alan Lazard as well also had a good game. But like, just maybe it was a farewell game because Devontae Adams getting force-fed. Alan Lazard put up 71 yards and a touchdown. Well, Garrett Wilson feeling left out. 4 catches for 51 yards. But for the Dolphins, which, you know, this could have been a big game. It didn't matter because the Broncos won. But it could have been a big game for their season. Tyler Huntley was starting. 227 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. It's not a great game. Definitely worse than last week. Devon A-Chain had a big day. 11 carries for 121 yards and a touchdown, including a 61-yard rush. So overall, a big day for him. Jonnu Smith continues his great play. We have 56 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle had 44. Malik Washington had 48 yards. You know, everyone was getting it other than Tyreek Hill, who had 2 catches on 3 targets for 20 yards. Big news from him. He only, in 17 games, he played all 17. Didn't even get to 1,000 yards and only had 6 touchdowns.
Damn.
For someone like Tyreek, it's just, it's been a disappointing year. And after the game in a press conference, what he was saying makes it seem like he wants out. Like a bit of a trade request. He even changed his Twitter profile pic to Antonio Brown. So it might be over for him in Miami.
Actually, it was his face on Antonio Brown's body. Thank you.
Not fault.
The last game of the regular season was our game of the week, and it did not end up being the game of the week. It was the Detroit Lions getting a dominant win over the Vikings, 31 points to 9. Overall, just not a great game from Sam Darnold or the Vikings. Sam Darnold finished with 166 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I think he missed about 4 touchdown passes to Justin Jefferson. He's definitely going to have to clean that up for sure. But moving on from that, Cam Akers was their leading rusher with 65 yards. He had a really nice day. And Aaron Jones also added with 45 yards on the ground. Overall, a pretty solid rushing game, all things considered. Oh my goodness. Justin Jefferson had a bit of an off day, only had 3 receptions for 54 yards. It was solid, but definitely not good enough for his standard, and especially in such a big game. They just couldn't get the ball to him. But as I mentioned, they did miss about like 3 or 4 touchdowns, it felt like, to him in the end zone. So he really should have had more touchdowns. He should have had touchdowns at least. Jalen Naylor also had a pretty solid game with 53 yards. That's about it for them. For the Lions, Jared Goff was decent. He had 231 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Overall, not a great day from him. But you know who did have a good day? Jahmyr Gibbs with 139 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, had a hat trick. And I forgot to mention, he also added with 31 receiving yards and 1 touchdown receiving. So he had 4 touchdowns. Amon-Ra had 6 receptions for 77 yards. Sam Laporta also added with 6 receptions for 63 yards. And overall, what was a pretty solid game for the Lions, and they secured the 1 seed with that win. A much needed win for them. Much really needed, actually, with how banged up their defenses, but they balled out, to be honest. Alex Anzalone came back. Bro played himself a really nice game. That's it for... That's weird. That's it for 2020, or for this season. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.
On screens, how we did. I went 13-3. Got the Vikings Lions game wrong, the game of the week. I also got my lock wrong. You went 8-8. And in the end, you finished above me in overall record by 1 game.
Yeah.
You got 182, I got 181. Overall, though, pretty good season by us, I'd say. I kind of fell off in the second half, but you know. But I think
Yes,
we should just get. Oh, you want to shout out Australia?
Oh yeah. Shout out Australia. Obviously, if you didn't know, we are Australian, and we ended up beating India in a cricket test series. For the first time in Australia, I should mention. For the first time since 2015, I believe. So 10 years it's been since we beat them in Australia, which is kind of sad. But we did it, so, you know, shout out Scott Boland. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say, really.
Let's get into the predictions, wildcard. We will
Yes,
not
sir.
have a lock of the week for the predictions because only 6 games and pretty much all the playoff games they're going to be competitive, you'd hope. It's the best of the best. But we'll
Real.
still have a game of the week
Yeah.
for at least like these 2 weeks. I don't know about the conference championships. That's probably
Yeah, I don't think that makes sense.
Yeah. First game on Saturday football is the LA Chargers going into Houston to play the Texans. Interesting matchup for sure. The obvious pick though is the Chargers. They have more wins on the season. It is in Houston, but the Chargers have just been such a better team I think this season. The Texans have been disappointing. They've also had a lot of injuries, so you know everyone but Nico Collins in that receiving room. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to go to Chargers here. Also well rested. I have to trust them more. The Texans have just been disappointing. I think I better not get kicked. I think it could be a big game for Quentin Johnston coming off a career day. They're going to need him to be going, I think, against Houston, though, if they want to win this game. So I think he's going to have a good game. The Chargers defense has been amazing all year. And yeah, I don't think that the Texans are going to be able to pull it out, honestly. So give me the Chargers in this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say. I agree with you. The Texans, I mean, I've been, I think, pretty critical of them all year. They just haven't nearly looked competitive enough, in my opinion, to even win a playoff game. I mean, anything can happen, obviously, in these playoffs. But yeah, the Chargers have just looked so good. They really have. I'm obviously going the Chargers as well. I mean, yeah, the injuries just Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell have also been massive for the Texans. But yeah, give me the Chargers. But moving on is an AFC North rivalry game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. The game is in Baltimore. And for that reason, I'm going the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens have just been the more dominant team of the two. They've really heated it up. They've won their last 4. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Steelers have lost their last 4. The Steelers are low-key just cooked. They have to, they rely so much on the big playability of George Pickens that if you shut him down, you probably shut down their whole offense. I just don't trust Russ at this point. I mean, who knows? Maybe playoff Russ becomes him. I don't know, but what I do know is that run game is probably not going to do very well. But yeah, give me the Ravens. I just think that they're too dominant, especially at home. I mean, Baltimore's a tough place to play, and I do think that they did beat the Pittsburgh Steelers there earlier in the season.
2016.
So yeah, give me the Baltimore Ravens.
Yep, I agree. I was just about to expand into that. We've seen this matchup twice, obviously, being in the same interdivision. The first time in Pittsburgh it was tough, but the second game, Lamar Jackson had a much better day, and they ended up just destroying the Steelers. I think it was like a 3-score win. I think it could be a big day again for Lamar. That duo, obviously, we've been saying since week 1, him and Derrick Henry is pretty much unstoppable. And the Steelers, just on all factors, have been, they've fallen back for sure. As of recently, I also think Lamar's hungry. He's still trying to, show that he can get it done in the playoffs, as we've seen. Haven't seen too much success. It's tough though when it's dominated by Patrick Mahomes. To be fair, he's not the only one with a lack of playoff success. But I do definitely trust him more than Russell Wilson.
Candidate.
Yeah, I definitely trust him more than Russell Wilson. And I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to get it done. They just haven't been playing well. The next game is the Denver Broncos going into Buffalo to play the Bills. I am going to take the Bills here. I actually do think that the Broncos might be able to make it a solid game, though. I think it could be close at least up until the final quarter. But Josh Allen's been playing at such a high level, and James Cook's having a good season as well. I am a little concerned because we know how good PS2 is, and you guys have a very solid defense as a whole. And outside of James Cook, there's not much for Josh Allen. Amari Cooper maybe could have a solid day. But yeah, that's the question. But the Bills' defense has been balling. I think they're going to make it really tough on the rookie Bo Nix. And I think that's going to be big. I think Bo Nix he's not going to have a terrible game, but he's not going to be playing how he's been playing this season. I think it for sure could be a down game for him. And Buffalo's also just a tough place to play. The conditions are obviously a lot different in Buffalo than they are in Colorado. So give me the Bills.
Yeah, well, it's my team, so of course I'm going the Broncos. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it will be a closer game. I'm obviously not going to be shocked if the Bills win, but I'm not going to be shocked if the Broncos win either. I lied, I will be a little shocked. But yeah, I mean, it's such a tough. Buffalo is like one of the toughest places to play. For sure, their fan base is going to make it tough for us. I do like a lot of your points with, I think our defense does kind of match up well with them. They rely so much on Josh Allen, and our D-line is so dominant that I reckon that they could actually, I think they'll do a good job on Josh Allen overall, and they'll have to rely more on their other players such as Amari Cooper, and obviously James Cook. And yeah, I mean, Bo Nix, I don't expect him to come out and have 300 yards and 4 touchdowns like he has a couple times this season. But if he can be good enough, anything's possible. It is going to be more of a defensive battle, I think, for sure, though. Especially in what I'm assuming is pretty trying conditions for both teams.
Seems like it always is. If this
For
late in
sure.
the season in Buffalo.
For sure. Yeah, give me my Broncos. But the next game is the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Green Bay Packers, and I personally think that the Philadelphia Eagles will beat the Packers. The Packers, they've just not looked the best, I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, I really like their roster, I really do. And I mean, hey, you never know. They came into last year as the underdogs, and they ended up, doing extremely well, but they just haven't backed that up this year, in my opinion, nearly enough. I mean, they've got such amazing players still, though. But ultimately, the Philadelphia Eagles are just such a cracked team. These guys want to save him. Did you want to save?
No.
Probably. Oh. But they are such a cracked team. They have so many studs everywhere, and I mean, Jalen Hurts is definitely going to be that guy. I think, it does depend on him a lot. This team, if they play well, it's through him a lot, but it's also through Saquon, who is one of the best players in the league. So, I don't know how the Green Bay Packers are going to really stop him, but, I assume they'll try. I think it will be a pretty close game, though, but overall, give me the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have the Eagles as well for sure. Coming off a bye, not a bye, but they rested all the starters,
bye.
including Saquon. So it's pretty much a bye for their starters. And Saquon, I think it's going to be a big day coming off a bye too. He's rested. I reckon at least 150 total yards, 2 touchdowns from him. I think he's going to be giving the Packers defense hell. And the Packers are also a little injured, lost Christian Watson, one of their most reliable receivers. And I trust Jalen Hurts a lot more than I do Jordan Love, not going to lie. Jalen Hurts is a really good quarterback. I know some people don't think so. But yeah, I actually don't think it's going to be too close. I could see it, but I think that the Eagles are definitely going to get it done here. They're just they're a better all-around team in my opinion, and they've been playing well. So, and it's also Philly's also another tough place to play in. Fan base is one of the best fan bases in sports. They're going to be there rooting for. But the next game is my game of the week. It's the Washington Commanders and rookie Jaden Daniels going into Tampa Bay to play Mike Evans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think I'm going to have to go. The Commanders are favored, I believe. I haven't checked recently.
Yeah, I think they would be.
Yeah. But I'm going to have to take. I'm going with the Buccaneers, actually. And I have the advantage of being home. The Commanders are such a young team, too. It's hard to trust the younger teams when it comes down to this late in the season, the playoffs, when it really matters. And Baker Mayfield's a quarterback who's been there, done that. Mike Evans won a Super Bowl, obviously, too. I trust the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield is a good playoff quarterback as well. We've seen him. Saw him with the Cleveland 2021. Obviously destroyed the Steelers, had to mention that. But yeah, he's a good quarterback. I trust him more than Jaden Daniels. And I think this is going to be an offensive game for sure. Washington's defense has had struggles. Tampa Bay's defense isn't nothing special. But Baker Mayfield is going to have a big day. And I don't know if Washington is anyone, I'm not going to lie, that can guard Mike Evans one-on-one. So he's going to make it tough for them. And Bucky Irving's playing well.
Fair. Also, my game of the week is the Commanders Bucks game. You bring up some good points. And honestly, I really can't argue. I'm so close to going with the
Think of
Bucks, but yeah, I mean, they've been there, done that, and the fact that Washington is such a young team is pretty scary for, well, me, who is about to pick them. But yeah, I'm gonna go the Commanders. Yes, they are a young team, but at the same time, I personally think that Jaden Daniels, I think he is definitely one of those QBs that just shines in the big moments. He's had countless big moments this year. He hasn't folded, and I mean, what he's done has just been nothing short of a miracle for them. I think they're both teams that are, lightning in a bottle when they get going. They are just insane teams. And to counter your Mike Evans point, I think Marshawn Lattimore
That's
will,
true.
will do anything. Will fight him. We might see them both ejected, which will be awful for the Bucks offense. But yeah, this is my game of the week. I agree with you completely with the whole defense thing. Like, they're both decent defenses, but come playoff time, their offenses are probably going to both be cracked. And this is probably going to be the highest scoring game of the wild card weekend. But without further ado, it is finally to the last game of the week. It is the Minnesota Vikings versus the LA Rams, at the Rams, I should say. And this is going to be a really good game. But for this game, I'm going the Vikings. I think that this game could really go either way, to be honest. Obviously, it just could. The Rams are one of those teams that when they get it going, they are one of the most delivery teams, on their day. But so are the Vikings. The Vikings have shown it time in, time out. Obviously, they did just come off, honestly, maybe their worst performance of the season, and I do expect them to get their get back. I don't know if anyone's even going to attempt to guard Justin Jefferson. I think Sam Darnold is going to be up for it. Guys like Jordan Addison as well, I think will definitely be up. Obviously it is in Los Angeles. I think that's pretty important, but ultimately, the Vikings have just been so dominant that it's like, how can you not pick them? But I'm definitely not sleeping on the Rams, that's for sure. Yeah, give me the Vikings.
Yeah, it's a very tough one to predict because the Rams, when they get it going, they're one of the best teams. Honestly. I mean, we saw them go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen, potentially the MVP winner, second best team in the AFC, and they pulled it out by outscoring them. I am going to pick the Vikings though. The Vikings this season they have 14 wins. I mean, they should definitely be the favorites. Sam Darnold's going to be airing it out, I think. So I do think, as you said, it's going to be a big day for Jefferson. Also a big day for Addison and TJ Hawkinson. But yeah, Matt Stafford's a good quarterback too. I'm a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie, because I feel like it depends how Sam Darnold plays as who wins. If he's turning the ball over, then they're gonna lose. Otherwise, they're gonna win. But yeah, I'm gonna pick the Vikings. They also have a better defense. They have, in my opinion, the best defense in the league. So didn't play like it last week, but that's the Lions.
What I was gonna say is, the Lions defense, it's still pretty banged up, and I mean, is the way that Sam Darnold did not play a good game at all. I mean, is he that elite QB that we have kind of grown to see? I mean, he had some inconsistencies. We kind of talked about it in mid-season, but he like completely shoveled it and like put it in a grave, and then all of a sudden it just all came out in that one game, and they got completely cooked.
Yeah.
As it turns out, blitzing him a bunch might actually just end up cooking. But yeah, maybe the Lions have, shown they've, opened the door to other teams to show how to beat the Vikings. That's all I'm gonna say.
With that being said, that's the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe, and then you can be like Daniel. You'll get a shout out. We don't have many subscribers, so you will get a shout out if you subscribe. We appreciate any support. Thanks so much for watching. It's been a very fun season. I've enjoyed recording every week. You know, it's a fun process.
Mine too.
We will keep it going, obviously, through the playoffs. Give us any like off-season ideas in the comments as well. You have anything you want to say?
Thank you guys so much for watching. Obviously, we enjoy any type of subscriptions or likes. I'm quite happy with the subscriber that we got. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you watch up to this point, and we will see you guys next week.
Goodbye. You gotta do it. You always do it.
Goodbye.
I don't have boost.
Hear me out. Yusuf Nurkic forward and Victor Wembanyama. This says no.
Next up is the future face of the league, Bryce Young, decimating the Falcons.
Bro, I want to do that game. But sometimes it's the way the cookie.
And I get the Bears Packers game, Patriots Bills game. Let's go Bucks Saints.
Okay,
Oh
Patriots,
no,
Bills
this
will
is
not move.
bad.
Actually, you get to talk about
Number one
what's his
pick.
name. No, but you get to talk
Joe
about yeah, Joe Milton. He cooked. So,
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, you just spent 3 minutes talking about the Bengals.
I know. I literally saw I saw the time of the Rocket League game, and I went, wait a minute, I've spent way too long. But the next game was an elite one. Get hyped. It was the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, we love the Colts too. We're both big advocates for Anthony Richardson. Let me just
Oh. Big AR fans here. Oh my goodness. The GOAT quarterback. See that play though? Look at this. Look at this. And cooked.
Oh,
Not even fluke. Bang!
I call bang.
Bang!
I call bang.
Bro, I thought we were gonna win. So I was just when I like had a shot but he blocked it. I'm like, fine, I'll talk about the Broncos.
Oh yeah, that's why you said hold on.
Raiders. That guy just put 1,000 on us. Oh my goodness.
I wasn't trying. 11 shots.
neither.
What the hell?
He just, bro just kept chucking up shots. It was his face on Antonio Brown's body. Thank you.
My fault. Same thing, you know. He's Antonio Brown.
Wow. Wow. Okay. That's racist.
I said
What?
Antonio.
Because they're two black guys?
No, I said because
They have to
it's
be
still
the same.
Antonio Brown.
They're nowhere
like
near the
player.
same. They're not the same player.
I'm not saying
They're
they're
not the same player.
I'm not saying they're the same.
Yes, you are.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Why
saying
are you saying it looks
Antonio
the same because they're
no,
both
I'm
black?
saying it's the
Okay,
same
we get it. We
thing
get it.
because it's
We
still
get it.
Antonio Brown there.
Yeah, well, it's not just Antonio Brown.
I'm cutting all this out.